Hello and welcome to CEO Nights with me, Nyimpini Mabunda. This is a podcast where we get up close and personal with some of the most admired CEOs in South Africa. You, the viewer or listener, get to be a fly on the wall in a relaxed, informal, peer-to-peer conversation between two senior leaders outside of the boardroom. The guest CEOs get to share their life journeys, just like I did in my best-selling book, Take Charge, which inspired this podcast, as we together continue on the journey to grow the next generation of business leaders. Make sure you grab a copy and discover the story for yourself. Take Charge is now also available in an audiobook. This podcast is brought to you by Nedbank in association with Avis Chauffeur Drive. My guest this evening, it's like the gift to leadership in South Africa. And I really mean that. And let me unpack it for you. So there's a Forbes list of top 100 women in business in the world. My guest tonight is featured on that list 2 years in succession. If you look at the Fortune 500, top 500 companies in the world, only 10.4%, I don't know how they got to the 0.4, but it's 10.4 are led by women. In 2023, she was Sunday Times Business Leader of the Year. She sits on several boards, and she leads one of the most iconic companies in South Africa called Bidvest Group, which, ladies and gentlemen, employs over 120,000 people. And tonight, I get to speak to that leader. But it's not all business. It's not all work. You'll be amazed to know that when she's not working and she wants to relax, she catches up on a favorite series and binge watch. Today we're going to find out what that is, because I'm curious. Her bio doesn't say which one, but she says she binge watches on the favorite series. I'm like, oh, she's human after all. I found out more. She loves playing card games. And she's very competitive. I don't know whether that's Monopoly or 30 seconds or whatever, but she beats everyone on that. So there's many more that we're going to find out.
My name is Mpumi Madisa, and I'm the Group CEO for the Bidvest Group. So I've never met Nyimpini. But we are both part of a global leadership, I don't want to say program, probably a global leadership association is the right word. And through this association, when a fellow member asks and calls, you take the call and you say, yes, what time and when. So actually, that's how we know each other.
For a moment, pretend that you're in a club or shebeen. I want my flates. I want your loud laugh. I want your loudest laugh. I want your loudest applause as we welcome my guest, Mpumi Madisa. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. So Mpumi, it's great to have you.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for everyone who is here. I hope that the next hour will be a quality conversation.
Indeed. Now, I was deliberate about the welcome and the laughter and the noise because we do our DD. You're very familiar with DD, of course. Bidvest has got what now, over 200 companies? Mm-hmm. We buy and sell. So in honor of you, we also did DD on you. No skeletons, you'll be glad to know. But one of the most impactful conversations for me that the Take Charge research team managed to track down your mom. Yeah. And we spoke to her for an hour.
She told me, she thought it was fraud. Sent me a WhatsApp saying,
and you know, it's like, who are these? What's happening here? Yeah. And one of the things that I remember her saying, and I quote, she's like, Mpumi likes to have fun. If you find her sitting with her friends, her very close friends, some of them from high school and varsity, you wouldn't think she's a CEO. And then she's like, As a family, we've got a signature laughter.
Yeah.
We laugh from the stomach.
Yeah.
And we've had that already tonight, right? But how important it is for you to chill, to relax, moments with friends, because these are high-powered, very busy work, and a lot of executives complain about not having time for themselves.
Yeah.
How do you do it? Or do you have the time?
Yeah, so, and in fact, people will be consistent about me and fun, even in the workplace, because I'm consistently about enjoying what I do and the space that I'm in. But I first of all start from a posture that I'm me before I'm a CEO. You know, I'm not a CEO first. I'm just me. I'm just a girl that grew up in Sebokeng and went to Mondio High School. Actually, that's just who I am.
Yeah.
And so I'm always very much alive to that first. And then I'm alive to the fact that I'm a mother before I'm anything else. And so that's why I play card games and Monopoly and 30 seconds, and then I lose and I win. I win most of the time, but, you know.
Yeah.
Because all I'm actually just doing is I'm just being a mom, you know, and I'm just being a friend to my kids. And then I'm a daughter and I'm an aunt and I'm a niece and all of those things. So even if you talk to my extended family, I'm the greatest person to be around. I throw the greatest parties.
Apparently,
because, I do.
Yeah,
I
okay.
do. Anyone needs a party, like I'm the person to do it.
Lovely.
And then I'm a chief executive. And so because I sequence my life like that, I don't struggle finding moments for fun.
Okay.
And I don't struggle finding moments to just be me, because I'm alive to just being me constantly.
So how, you know, we're talking to leaders here and aspiring leaders who really want to learn from your journey. And I'm wondering, how much of you do you encourage leaders to bring into their workplace?
1,000% of you is what you must bring into the workplace. I always say to people that, you know, when we're looking for jobs, you know, there's a time when you're looking for a job initially, and this is when you're coming out of school.
Yeah.
All you're thinking about is the industry.
Yeah.
You're thinking about the brand of the organization. You're trying to get an alignment on what you've studied, etc., the role. You've got a very technical way in which you're assessing the fit.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that there's a point at which that must pivot. And your assessment around fit has to be values of the organization and culture of the organization. Because once you're really entrenched in building the career, if the values and the culture doesn't work, it's a problem.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how amazing that organization is. If you feel like an imposter when you are there, it's a problem. If you feel like you can't be you, it's a problem. If you are pretending between 8 and 6 and then have to pull off the mask and go home, it's a problem.
Sure.
So the most powerful way of building a career is being in a place where you can be you. And where you is accepted. And where more of you is what people are hungry for. Because it's also the intrinsic parts about ourselves that make us different.
Well, yeah, exactly.
That also enable us to add value to the role, to the organization, to all of those things. So for me, you have to be able to bring 1,000% of yourself and be really, truly you all the time and consistently you. And when that works in your organization, then you're in the right place. If it doesn't and it feels like a fight or a battle, or you're feeling like you're constantly trying to assimilate into, then you might not be in the right place.
Get a dedicated relationship banker, preferential rates, 100% home loans, travel and lifestyle perks, and access to wealth solutions. Get the complete private banking experience. Digital when you want it, human when you need it.
So let's stick with this being you, because I love it. What shaped you? What are some of the influences, probably in the foundational years, that you think contributed to the leader that you are today? And maybe what did you draw from your upbringing and family in particular that you value a lot in the way that you lead today?
Yeah. So I guess a couple of things shaped me. I always think of my life growing up in two halves. The one half is growing up in a family, both parents together, struggling to make it work, and all they just wanted was the best for their children. And one of my biggest foundation was just education, and how my parents were just, one of this whole phrase would say, education will set you free. It was, I understood it, and this is what my parents were doing. So
and of course your mother was an educator herself.
Absolutely, right? So I grew up, which is why I'm a mathematician, which is another story.
Yeah.
And so in that part of growing up, I learned the love for family, and the love for creating a warm home. And my mom taught me that creating a warm home doesn't mean you have to have money.
Oh, wow.
Love and warmth does not require financial means that's this deep. It's about doing the simple things. I remember trips down to Durban. So every school holiday we used to go down to Durban to family, right? So not that we're in hotels or anything like that. And my mother, and so every time when I drive down, and you see how on the highways you have these little picnic spots in the middle of nowhere. There's like
with
three
those
chairs,
concrete tables.
Concrete tables,
I know them.
You know? And so our drives down to Durban were halfway. Harry Smith saw around. She would stop, and my mom would have cooked a full meal. And she would take out all the boxes and Tupperware. Take out her Tupperware. And she would dish up, and we would have a Sunday meal in the middle of nowhere.
Amazing. Wow.
And so I grew up knowing that you don't have to worry about whether you can walk into a restaurant and pay for prawns and things. That love means itombolo and chicken and whatever, and it's about just loving hands and a loving heart. So I learned that a lot with my mom. And so even today, I then know that reflecting love does not mean that you have to do it financially. There are many ways of reflecting love. And then I've got another part of growing up where I then watched my family, my parents' marriage actually just fall apart. I watched them go from loving each other to not loving each other until eventually their marriage broke after 20 years of marriage.
Wow.
But what I knew when that marriage broke was that it was time for them to be apart. They were actually better off separate than they were together.
You knew that then, or it's upon reflection?
No, then.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I remember even when my dad packed, I helped him pack. The day that he left, I helped him pack, because I knew that even as children, we were better off with either one separately and not with them together. Stuff happens, but that's what it was. And so like I'm 16, and now you're 16 going into 17. I'm doing my matric year. Their marriage is falling apart. I'm in matric, so it's the worst time for their marriage to fall apart. They had a business at the time, lost the business. So by the time I write my matric exams, we've got a sheriff going in and out of the house because we're losing the house. And by the time I get to January the following year, when I have to go to varsity, we've been kicked out of the house. It's been repossessed by the bank. My dad's now disappeared. He's nowhere to be found. We're trying to find another place to stay, and all my mom has at that point in time is enough money for me to register at Wits, for my brothers to register at their schools, and she's got maybe 1 or 2 months rent. And that's it.
Wow. And
I'm going to university. And so, my life from that point onwards, it was the toughest time
just
ever.
Turned upside down. Just like that.
Down. Like, toughest time ever in my life.
And you had to change schools as well?
Well, that was before.
Okay, that was before.
Okay. I was meant to be head girl at the other school, and
then she told us
that's another story. And I remember through that time understanding every day when I went to Wits that if I don't make this work, my life is fundamentally different. If I don't get this degree, I'm in trouble. If I don't pass every single subject, I'm in trouble.
It made you more resolved.
And yeah, it was tough. And
Yeah.
I also watched my mom go through a very, very difficult time.
Yeah.
Very, very difficult time. So I know what it's like to not have. I know what it's like when we walk out of the house and you go to Bree Street or what's the other one we used
Small
to go
Street?
to? No, not Small. It's another taxi rank. Just when you pass Bree Street, I forgot what it's called.
Nord.
No, the other one.
Not Nord, okay.
And I know what it's like
Yeah.
when what shopping for food looks like is the plate of tomatoes into a plastic.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
plate of potatoes.
Potatoes they put in the
into a
plastic. Yeah, in the
a
taxi rank
plate.
vegetable market. Yes.
You know.
Yes. And the spinach that is not
And
covered.
the spinach
Yeah.
that's not covered,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you know. And so there's a piece of like really hardship that I know and understand very well. And a piece of you have to really work hard to get out of the gutter. I understand that very well.
Wow.
And so one of the things that I am is I'm an extremely hard worker. Because I do know that when the chips are down, all you can do is just really push hard and work hard. And then things kind of come around. So I mean, at the time, eventually when I finished at Wits, my mom only paid registration money. So I'm a product of what today is called NSFAS, then was TEFSA.
Yeah.
Right. So this government paid for my schooling. I have got a huge love for this government, however it is looks like.
Yes.
Because without this government, I wouldn't
You
be
wouldn't be
sitting
where you
here
are.
today.
Yeah. Mpumi, I just want to pick up on that because, of course, I come across a lot of people who are feeling despondent and demotivated by their circumstances. You know, I grew up in Mpumalanga in the rural areas, and it's just like down and out. Family doesn't have money. I'm at a disadvantage. I didn't go to the private school. I can't afford to go to UCT. And in my book, Take Charge, I kind of advocate that our circumstances may be different, very different, but there's actually an advantage that you can find in your circumstance. And, you know, like what you've just explained now, I mean, businesses go through a lot of tough time, but resilience is in you.
Yep.
And you learned it from a young age.
Yep.
What's your comment on that? I mean, should people be feeling already on a negative when they have to compete with others who grew up in more advantageous background, or they can catch up and bring something to them?
Yeah. So the reason why we call life a race is because it actually is a race. And it's got many phases to it and over a period of time. And every single aspect of it will challenge you differently. What I do know is that you're generally being built for greater complexity as you go through current complexity.
Yeah.
And so if you understand that and you appreciate that, then you have to assume that you're going to go through this complexity.
At some point.
You are not going to have to turn around and turn back. So if you agree with that, then you understand that it's complex, but you will go through it and you'll be able to transcend. And I think you're right. Resilience is just such an amazing thing. And difficulty, poverty, etc., all of those things build a significant amount of resilience. And I think one of the things that we take for granted is that when that is how you are broken and then rebuilt, once you get into the workplace, ain't nobody can break you down.
Yeah. Wow.
You know, so we forget that. And so for me, I remember when I would come into the workplace and things would be difficult or whatever, I'd just be clear, Uguti, it can't get worse than where I was.
Oh, wow.
Like, there's no way, you know. It really can't get worse than where I was. And so I don't generally deal with situations where I feel like I can't.
Yes.
I generally just go, okay, here's another level of complexity. How do we apply what we know already to deal with this level of complexity? And I think that when you go through difficult things, also you learn rejection.
Yeah.
And you learn how to absorb rejection. One of the difficulties in the corporate space is that we're all so afraid of the word no.
Yes.
But when you grow up with this complexity, you hear it so many times, but you know that it doesn't stop things. And so it's not even something that you fear.
Yeah.
So there's an amazing power, and I must tell you this. I remember when I was at varsity, I tried to be a medical doctor. It failed, so I'm in the wrong job. I'm supposed to be a medical doctor. And I remember the girl that beat us all in that first year was Maleu. And Maleu was from Limpopo. And Maleu had failed matric.
Oh, wow.
She repeated matric through star schools. And first year vets, she knocked us silly.
Wow.
Maleu was topping everybody.
Yeah.
And yet she had failed matric. For me, that's just amazing. When your drive is on overdrive.
Sure.
And you're clear about what it is that you're doing. Then you do like what Maleu did. Like we bowed out of medicine because we just couldn't.
She's like, wow.
I don't know where she is. And I'm sure wherever she is, she's probably one of the best doctors in the world.
So it's not true what I heard, that the challenge why you, after passing first year in this medicine, and you decided to change to stats and business was because of an incident.
Because of the rat.
Because of the rat, yes. You know? It wasn't the rat incident. Oh, it was.
It was the rat incident. And I'll quickly tell the rat incident. So when you're doing medicine, there's two. The first part of it is you have to dissect a rat and a frog. And I got to my dissection table, and first of all, I've got a fear of, if there's a rat now, I'm like out of, if it comes across here, I'm
made sure we clear all of them.
And this thing was standing there, and I couldn't stand it, but also when I started, when all the blood came out, I then, so I was the first to finish the practical. And my lecturer came around and said to me, "Oh, you're done quickly?" And I said, "Yeah, no, I'm done." And he said to me, "Okay, so Mpumi, this patient arrived on your operating table alive, and now they're dead." And I said, "Oh, okay." and
there's a patient in front of you.
And that day I then knew, because I didn't enjoy any part. So how am I going to go from a rat to a cadaver?
Yeah.
How do you go when you can't do? How do you then go to a cadaver?
Yeah.
So I then knew, I'm not going to be able to do this, and now I have to pivot out of it.
Yeah.
And by the way, my mom has got no money.
Yeah, she did say that 6 years was too long. She just said, 7 years. She just said, "No, good luck, go for it, I'll make a plan, but I'd rather you do a 4-year degree, not 7.
Yeah, and so I had to pivot out of it. Yeah, so that's why. If it wasn't for that, which is why one of the series that I'm watching a lot at the moment is Doctors series, because I get to relive what I could have been. Oh, I would have been that one.
I want to pick up on this career planning or thinking about a career, because yes, we heard the doctor story, but I think in an interview with 702, you also talked about economists at Reserve Bank.
Yes.
And then you also talked quite clearly, where we met at one of the CEO roundtables, that you didn't seek out to be CEO.
No.
It kind of happened to you. You were picked, but it wasn't in your plan or your radar. How much career journey, planning, or ambition or thinking should people be doing versus letting fate happen, do the best job at where you are, and people will notice you and sponsor you? What's the balance? I mean, what kind of career conversations do you have with your team?
Yeah. So, and I don't want to say to people you mustn't do career planning, because I think you do need to think about where you want to be and how. So I think that's, you have to do that.
Yeah.
I think that more than thinking about your own career and how, I think you need to more understand in the organization, what are the key drivers of that organization? What are the portfolios that drive the organization? And then if your aspiration is to be in the top echelon, you then have to think about where you're at the moment and whether your current position gets you there or not. And most organizations kind of have that.
Yeah.
And so I think from that perspective, I'd say understand that and then think about where you're at. But I would also say just don't overthink it, because when you overthink it, sometimes even subconsciously you act it out without even realizing it. Ultimately, people are chosen, hey?
Yeah.
So you can have your own plan in whichever way, but ultimately people are chosen. And so it's actually more important to be the best in what you are doing, in my view, rather than going, I've got a CEO plan and then I must do this and then I must do this and then I must do that, you know. I think what's more powerful is you just have to be the best in your frame, in the team, in your specialization, in your occupancy, whatever it is. You have to be the best, because when you're the best and you stick out, people want the best.
I mean,
that's what organizations are looking for. And so if you are that, you'll stick out not only in your organization, you'll stick out externally, you'll stick out everywhere.
Wow.
And then you'll create subconsciously multiple opportunities for yourself. And then you'll be able to pick, because you will create demand.
Yeah, wow.
So it's more powerful to create demand for yourself rather than to
down.
plan your
Force the supply down,
No.
Build it and they'll come.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. No, I hear that. But I mean, what you also related in that meeting, which really struck me, was I think Brian sort of mentioned it even like 10 years before it happened, that one day you'll be CEO of this business. And you kind of dismissed it. But like, can you see it that far in advance? And in answering that, can you reflect on what you think he saw in you?
Yeah. So I had the conversation with Brian about 7 years before.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, I had moved into a sales role, and I had found my niche in sales. I love selling.
Yeah.
In fact, the CEO job is a problem.
Yeah.
Because actually, I just want to sell,
I mean,
I can sell as a CEO.
What can you not do? Doctor, selling, economist.
But I love that. I love the business development aspect of it, and I love the relationship building, and I love putting scores on the scoreboard, and I love chasing.
Yeah.
And so when I had the conversation with Brian, he first of all, he said to me he wants me to come to group to do that sales piece that I was doing in the division and I had done in one of the subsidiaries. So he wanted to amplify that to group and see what that could look like. And then he said to me, he thinks I can take over as CEO. I almost kind of fell off my chair. And this is what I really value with that Brian conversation, because one of the things that corporates are afraid of saying, I see you, and telling you that they see you.
Yeah.
When you find someone that you do see and when you don't communicate it, people don't know that you are seeing them.
Yeah.
And so they can leave, they can find out because they just don't know.
Yeah.
And he didn't say, I'm offering you the job.
Yeah.
He said to me, I think you can get there. I think there's work that we need to do between now and then. I think the work looks like this. I think I need to do this with you. I think Lindsay needs to do this body of work with you. And then you need to think about what else you need to do to get yourself ready.
You need to take charge. Yeah.
And then we'll see how it goes. So it wasn't there wasn't a time frame. There was just there's a possibility. he's buying in the possibility, and let's see if we can actually kind of make it work. And so even when I left his office, as like gobsmacked as I was, when I came back the next day, I never walked back into the office going, I could be CEO. I actually just left it.
Yeah.
I actually just left the conversation in his office. And I started more thinking, what do I need to do to get into this job? And I remember one of the decisions I made then is that I have to go back to school. And that's when I decided to go back and do my master's in finance and corporate finance. Because everybody around me is a CA.
Yeah.
So you can't come in and wing it with CAs. No, you can't. You can't.
Yeah.
In fact, you can't wing it with anybody. You can't. You can't decide, oh, that's what you're doing. You're just going to wing accounting and finance. No. If you don't have the fundamental grounding, you have to go and build it, right?
Yeah.
And it's not that finance was foreign to me because I was already going through income statements, but I then knew that now when someone says IFRS 9, I must know what IFRS 9 is, right? You can't wing. Or when people say IFRS 16, you just keep quiet and you drink water.
You pretend to be busy with something else.
No. You must be able to engage on IFRS 16. So I had to go back to school to get that done. And because Bidvest grows by acquisition, I had to go study corporate finance. You can't wing buying companies.
Yes.
You have to know the fundamentals of valuation.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot outside of that, and I got mentors and so on, and he did the work.
So there was an action plan to really get there, which you led in terms of taking charge. You've just reminded me of a point here that it concerns me quite a bit, that the world is becoming more and more digital. AI, data is the new oil. Everything being done now. Cloud and all of this kind of things. I mean, even traditional businesses like ShopRite are growing through Checker 60 and data analytics. But our STEM pass rate is very, very low. And I find that in organizations, you just have far too many people who are not quant competent, even in boards. And I've seen some talk around how we compare to India and China, for example, where they just a lot more tech focused and they've got a higher pass rate and so on and so forth. But with this change, can we take the cohort that's working, that maybe the 70% that didn't pass math in matric, but they are here, and reskill them to be quant-driven, to understand this so we're not left behind? Or are we in trouble? Because you talked about how you reskilled yourself in corporate finance. Can we democratize that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've got a different view. So I don't think that there's a dependency on STEM. For me, the change that I'm seeing from a technology perspective doesn't mean that you necessarily have to have studied in that space. I think you could have studied anything and you can still grab this piece. One. And then I actually think what we need thinkers.
Okay.
And you don't have to have studied STEM in order to be a thinker. For me, what is more powerful today in the conversations that we should be having as teams, doesn't matter at what level we're at, and I always say, it's this notion around ideation where we are asking the right questions. So we can all sit and have a conversation, but if we're not asking the right questions, the level of ideation and the thinking process remains at a particular level.
Yeah.
And it doesn't kind of amplify. And so for me, it's really more around asking the right questions. I mean, I for example, from a data perspective, I'm a novice and I'm right here at the bottom, okay? I was having a conversation today with the bank team, and we have to respond to the regulator. And I remember they sent me their responses to the regulator about 2 weeks ago, and I said, guys, I need 3 hours in a room so that I can understand what it is. And a lot of the questioning is around the data migration piece of the bank. right? I'm at grade 1 where that is concerned because I'm not a tech person. But all I was doing in the 3 hours was asking the right questions, right? In order to enable us to think about what we then need to do with client data differently, what in our systems is weak, and what needs to be adjusted, what the expectation of the regulator is in terms of data access and analytics and where we're. So I think that I really don't think that we've got a barrier because of
technology or whatever.
And so I think that this ability to upskill is an ability that we definitely have. I just think that, and I think it's a South African problem, and I think it's an Africa problem in general. In South Africa and in Africa, we have not recognized that our most powerful asset is people. We haven't recognized that. And so we haven't had a conversation that says, when that is the most powerful asset, and by the way, it's the most powerful asset even looking forward because of the demographic issue
that we
globally.
have as a continent,
Right.
Mean age of 19.
Absolutely. And so what we are sitting with on the continent is skills for the world. Right? Those people are sitting on the continent. But we haven't had a conversation that says, so when we think about the world over the next 10 to 20 years, what are Africans meant to do in the world, in the different spaces? And data and tech is a piece of it. Sustainability and climate pieces are another piece to it, etc. Right? And I just think that we've got no strategy. And if we had a strategy, we would know what reskill looks like. And how you can quickly reskill. I'll give you a different example. We've got a business in our security business for drones. Do you know that to be a drone pilot, you get a similar license, very, very close to being a pilot for jets. It's the same. It's the same level of qualification. And to come into our space and be a drone pilot, you don't have to have any qualification. You don't need to have any qualification. What you do need to do is you have to be trainable, and then you have to pass a health test. Once you do that, we will train you. And you can come in and start with us as a drone pilot. And after 2 years, once you're comfortable, you can go into an academy and end up flying all over the world and work for Emirates. And you can start that with 0 qualification and just passing our health test and doing drones, maybe for 2 years. So I just think we don't have, this tactical way of just thinking about skill and kind of leapfrogging opportunity. I just don't think we do that from a people perspective holistically. I think it's very doable, and I don't think that there's any barrier. And one of the things about South Africans is that we can actually do anything. We are people that's like that.
I mean, it's very clear listening to you and also in the research we've done that you are so people-centric. That has been repeated several times, and I think looking at your upbringing, a family spirit, you and fun and all of that, you're very relatable. And I read somewhere that when you visit some of the operations, you like walking the floor, going to the factories, going to the operations and meet up with people. What's the vibe on the ground? What are you picking up in terms of what, because sometimes you get lost in Mero's Arc, Ivory Tower offices, wherever we may be in Sentin, and you get disconnected. So I like what you do. But what are you picking up? What are some? Because a lot of people sitting here are also people leaders, and what are topical issues that we as leaders should be thinking about?
Sure. So I mean, I pick up a hunger for more. And you must also remember that we have a big population within the group where we've got a massive number of wage earners. And so when you're walking a factory line or a warehouse, you can feel on the ground a hunger for, so how do I get out of this, and how do I get into the next level, into the next job, you know. So I pick that up a lot. I pick up in other areas issues around culture. And in other areas I pick up, we see your people centricity, we wish you could bring it to the floor. Because sometimes, even though, you know, that's what you're saying and that's what you want, for that action to simulate all the way down takes time. So there are places where I walk the floors and I can feel that people, without saying it, are going, that warmth that you talk about, we need to feel it here. We don't feel it in the way that, you know, we should be feeling it. I also pick up, can you do more for my children, is what I also pick up. Because we also have a population of much older people who have got their own dreams and aspirations. And actually, for them, they're kind of less about me, but I've got this person, and can you help, and what do we do? And then I also pick up, this organization has been amazing all my life. And I love what I do. And
engagement,
I want
and
to do more. So it's a definite mixed bag. I must tell you, this is interesting. I walk the floors in a security business in London. Don't I come across one of our security guys in London who's an Indian guy from Durban?
Amazing.
He like catches me on, you know, as I'm walking. He's like, you know, I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to tell you I grew up in Umhlanga. I'm like, what are you doing here? She's like, it's so cool to have you.
Amazing.
And you know, we bought the business a couple of years ago. So you also pick up that kind of stuff, which is great. So it's all different, but it's stuff like that.
You come across as obviously quite fun, relatable, friendly, but you're also very tough. You know, I mean, I've had some of the tough negotiations and how you handle them, and it's like you cut to the chase, boom. And, you know, from a leadership style point of view, how would you advise leaders sitting there in terms of situational leadership or moving from different situations that it requires, especially as it relates to tough people situation where maybe you need to let someone go because they're not performing. We do have recruitment errors, and we do have people that come with high promise, but at some point you just like, it's not working. And those are conversations that, in my experience, sometimes even big leaders tend to shy away from and avoid. But your mom said you're very authentic.
So I don't know where I learned this, but I think that the corporate world kind of teaches us that you can't be warm and empathetic and tough. For some reason, those two things, I certainly grew up in a corporate world where those two things were separated. If you're warm and empathetic, then you're soft. And the tough people are tough, and they're consistently tough. And I mean, I remember there would be, people would be given names, you know, they would say, this one is a fixer. You know, if you need a business fixed, you send Nyimpini in and he does his thing. And so you also walk around like a fixer. You know?
Of course, you don't mean that literally, right?
And so we kind of grow up like that. And so we then worry about being warm and empathetic because we're worried that we might be perceived as being soft. And we worry about the ability to transcend from the empathy to making very firm decisions. And for me, it's just, I mean, ultimately, you have to do what is right. if I'm going to fire you, I don't have to be nasty to you. I don't have to disrespect you.
Yeah.
Just because I'm firing you. I don't, that's not justified. I don't have to be laughing or whatever, but for me, and I think that's how I kind of rationalize it, that even when it's a tough conversation, I have an obligation to do it with respect.
Yeah.
Even if it's a tough conversation, I have an obligation to know that you're a father. Even if it's a tough conversation, I have an obligation to know that you've got other responsibilities. So I must do it. It's the right thing for the business. But when you walk out of my office, you must not feel like less of a person.
Your dignity.
That's all. That's all. I must keep your dignity intact. But I will do what I need to do.
Yeah.
But you will not walk out of my office feeling like you've been hit by a bus.
Sure.
You will feel unhappy because you may have lost your job.
Yeah.
But you will understand and you will know that it's another phase in your life and you have to open another door and figure out what the next thing to do is. So for me, that's the thing.
Yeah.
So even when I walk into a negotiation, it doesn't matter what it is that they're negotiating. When we're having tea, I'm joking, we're doing all of that. We walk in, when I walk into this room, I'm buying this business.
Yeah.
This is what I'm doing in this hour that I'm having this conversation. So at the end of the hour, I need to have negotiated the sale and purchase agreement.
Yeah.
And I'm going to negotiate it well.
And you need to have gotten the price that you
want.
want.
And I need to get the price that I want. And the price that I want, I'm not going to get to by telling you that you're stupid and you don't know what you're doing.
That's true.
I'm not going to get the price like that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get the price. I'm going to ask you why you believe value for this business is this number. And then I will have to put on the table why I believe value is different. And then I must be able to justify why there's a doubter.
Wow.
And I must be able to convince you that you're not worse off without this delta because we can still find each other.
Wow.
That's what I have to do.
Yeah.
Right? And I need to make sure how we do a deal. You get what you want, I get what I want.
Win-win.
You are a little bit uncomfortable
because
you haven't gotten the number that you want.
Yeah.
I'm a little uncomfortable because I've paid a little bit more than what I wanted.
That's negotiation.
That's negotiation. That's where we need to get to.
A lot of us in the private sector have got this fear and phobia for the public sector. You know, there is a very important one I couldn't have. Many of you here probably don't know, but Mpumi worked, was it Gauteng government?
Yes.
The government official, the chief director.
Yes.
And she says, and you can tell the story yourself, it was one of the most important career pivot for her. As a CEO of one of the biggest companies in South Africa. How is that? It's almost like unimaginable for those who are government negative, because we think corruption, nothing moves, and all of this.
Yeah, so I mean, I was very fortunate. I worked for a government department, but also I took time. When I decided that I'm leaving corporate and going to government, I made the decision I'm leaving corporate and I'm going to government.
Yeah. And
it took me 6 months to find the job. And I did a lot of research. Yeah. So I didn't just like, you know, when I researched all the government departments. I wanted to be in Gauteng. When I found the job, I went to meet a different HOD to understand this department, culture, all of those kinds of things that are important, and who's the DG, who's the MEC, and so that I could really understand and be clear that this is a space that I wanted to be in. So I did a lot of work and a lot of research around it because I did want to land in the right space. Best decision ever. Learned more in the public sector than I had ever learned in the corporate world.
Wow.
Was stress tested more than ever. And you know what I love about government? And I always compare it like this. For me, private sector is like SAPS. Government is like the army. You know, that's the only way that I can explain it. Is that it's like boot camp in government.
Yeah.
And then corporate is okay, but it's easier.
Yeah.
I must say this.
Yeah, I've heard
I find
that.
it. It's easier to work in the corporate sector. It's harder. It's hard when your KPI is the livelihood of people.
Oh.
It's very hard. And when you're being held accountable for the livelihood of people, it's very hard. It's easy in the private sector, guys, for shareholders. You have to make money for shareholders. You make money for them 1 year, the next year is a little bit hard. They're upset, but it's an easier fail. It's a hard fail when you're not getting basic service delivery right, because it's people's lives. It's a very different KPI. It's a very different oversight role when your oversight are different political parties who will hold you to account.
Yeah, that's real accountability.
It's very different. It's very different. It's very different when you have to motivate 6 times over for anything that you want. In the corporate world, you don't. You go talk to your boss. You present your budget once and then it gets signed. Government, you motivate your structure. Someone doesn't want it. Someone doesn't like you. Why do you want so many people? Then you must figure it out, and then it goes up. Then it's no, and then you have to go to office of the premier, and then it's a level of complexity that when you understand it and you get it right, it's just phenomenal and amazing.
Such a different perspective.
I love government, and I will say to anyone, if you want to really stress, go to government. Government is fantastic, and there are really good departments in government where you can do the work that you want to do, and I got that, and it was an amazing privilege.
And they do need the talent that you have here, and things are improving. Oh, thank you so much. So before we take questions from the floor, just like they do on TV shows and you binge watch, so you know, there's a commercial break. and during the commercial break, we play adverts, we play music, and there's a song that we believe is quite close to your heart. So DJ, please play that song. I want to hear if it's true. Have we lined it up that we believe Mpumi is dancing?
Whoever gave you this song really knows me. You know?
It's a pity that Mpumi has just had an off and she's still committed to coming here. We're going to see some moves that she does when my husband plays.
So I must tell you this. I mean, I love this. But when Lebo Mathosa passed away, my whole team tools down.
Oh!
Tools down. The day that she had that car accident, I could not believe. I was so cold. I got to the office and I said, no work.
So this is...
I said absolutely no work because she was such an icon.
No, and she was so talented.
I can't believe,
such
you know.
a talent.
So Mahasman and Trompis and all of those people, they're all my people.
Yeah, wow.
So, yeah, okay. They know me well.
Nedbank private clients get rewarded with greenbacks. Get up to 30% off on flights with Greenbacks Travel on Avo and up to 2% unlimited cashback on all Nedbank Amex card purchases. Plus, even more rewards on Fridays. Join Nedbank private clients today. See money differently. Nedbank.
Hi, Mpumi. My name is Matthew. I think my question is just really wanting to understand the life of a CEO. So you obviously spoke about complexity. You probably get pulled in so many different directions. How do you anchor yourself down towards sort of your major KPIs, your major matrix, and push aside something that's minor? What is the thinking that goes into that? Because I can assume that there's so much that you need to do, but there's certain things that need more of your time than others. So how do you sort of balance that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Can go one by one. Yeah.
My whole team is very empowered, and I think that it's not also just me. I think it's just the Bidvest structure and the way that the business is managed and structured. We devolve a lot of responsibility and accountability. So all our management teams know they've got the authority to make calls and to make decisions. They've got a lot of leeway in order to make decisions. So quite honestly, I don't have a flurry of things that come up the line. And maybe my 1 week, I never say no. So if anyone in my team comes to my office and says, this is like I'm in and I'm thinking and I'm trying to help. If it is something where I feel that it probably could be done by somebody else, I would be part of the initial response, and then I'll devolve it. So if it's something that I'm clear that maybe shouldn't be with me, should be with somebody else, I also acknowledge the fact that the request has come to my office. So I also acknowledge my responsibility to respond appropriately, and not just say, this is not something that I should do. So I actually never say no. If it is then something where I feel like I'm getting drawn too deep, I'll help with the initial thinking process, and then I will devolve it. But I'll never say no up front, because there's a reason why someone would go, I'm asking you, and I'm not asking Nyimpini. There's a reason for that, and I'm happy with that. But people in Bidvest are super empowered, really, to make their calls, to make their decisions. And also when we bring in new senior executives, I have that conversation with them that says, you are going to make these decisions. You must decide. And it doesn't mean that we expect you to make every right decision. It's okay to be wrong.
Yeah.
The only thing is that if it's the wrong decision, recalibrate quickly. Don't stay in it long.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that I ask. If you pick up that not the right decision, recalibrate quickly, make a different call, and keep on moving. Don't get stuck and kind of stand still. And if it is something that you're struggling with, pick up your hand and ask us to help you quickly. That's the only thing that I ask. Outside of that, people must make their decisions. People must run the businesses. You must make a call, and you must trust yourself. You must trust yourself. When you've got 120,000 plus people, you've got a management team of about 400. 400 people need to trust themselves to decide. And that's very important. Otherwise, the entire organization will come to a halt with everybody waiting for the center to give a nod, and we don't run like that.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Hi, Mpumi. My name is Ngutando Ngwagastole. You spoke about the demographic dividends, and in a world that we're living in, which is so polarized, and if you're looking at the unemployment stats in South Africa, where, for example, 7 in every 10 young people between 16 and 24 are unemployed in South Africa, right? What message of hope can you give to young people not to give up?
So I guess maybe it's two things. The message of hope is that, first of all, I think when you're young, you have to accept that you've got decades in front of you. And so giving up is almost a non-negotiable. You can't do it. Because ultimately what you're saying is that the decades in front of you are gone and lost. So we can't stop the race when we haven't even started running it. You haven't even started running the race, and you're already giving up and you're stopping. And that's a personal thing. And that's a personal decision that you have to make. So I'd probably say that's the first thing. The second thing is that when you're a young person, you have to keep knocking at doors until they open. I find, and it's not all young people, but I guess it's very easy to get lost in your space and lost at a home and not doing anything and so on. I used to work for no money. And when you're a young person who's struggling to find a job, your only opportunity is that you must volunteer. We must be prepared to work for no money, because you must know that what you're building is you're building skill and you're building a track record that eventually you'll be able to monetize. And so you then have to think about what that means. So it means I may have to work for money in a space where I don't have to travel far. And so therefore I have to be prepared to work for money in this circle so that I can walk. You are one. Or maybe I can get travel so my circle is bigger. But the whole concept about volunteering for me is a big and a powerful thing. That if no one is willing to pay you to work, then say it's okay, let me work anyway. Because in a year's time, you've built something that you didn't have 12 months ago that you can monetize. You can't monetize anything if you're sitting at home. And so I think there's also that as young people, we kind of need to get into and be prepared to do quite a lot without necessarily getting anything out of it. And then I also come back again to, me being fortunate and being educated by this government. There are lots of programs that government has. There are really, really, really lots of programs that government has, and they start up every single year, and they're looking for new people every single year. You have to try and get into something like that, and you just don't stop trying. You can't be in a place where you stop trying. But for me, the mental piece is, let's not give up before we've even started.
And also the work that you do, Mpumi, moving around, going to different spaces and talking to young people, it's also encouraging them not to give up, because hearing your story. So I read that one of your first engagements, when you were appointed CEO, you went to this college, I think it's Masibambana College in Orange Farm.
In Orange Farm.
And the topic of your keynote was, "So I am like you." Just these young boys and girls seeing themselves in you, projecting and knowing you were in that kind of an environment before. That can be enough to help someone not to give up.
100%.
And
when I was speaking, I had a strong message to the students, but I also had a message to the teachers. And I said to the teachers, teaching has become far more complex today than it was maybe when I was at school, because kids have got rights and all sorts of things. So there's a level of complexity. But I also said to them that because you don't know who is in your class and what they are destined to be, you have to assume that all of them are destined for greatness and treat them like that. Assume that all of them in your room is either the next president or the next CEO of NASA or the next CEO of the World Bank. Assume that of all of them when you walk in and teach with that assumption.
One of the coolest things, I was jealous because it didn't happen to me, is that when Mpumi got appointed a few weeks into the job, she got a call from the president to congratulate her. How cool is that? And then again, like your mom thought, you thought it was fraud or fake. She didn't recognize the president's voice.
I didn't think it was fraud. I just didn't know who it was.
Didn't you start like saying fellow South Africans?
No. I just didn't know who it was. I don't have the president on my phone, on speed dial. I just didn't know who it was. So.
No, but I can understand. You've got all these comedians who impersonate actually very well, especially Madiba. They impersonate him very well. So I would have the question as well.
So much for a great and authentic conversation. Lots of takeaways from tonight. My name is Sarah Njamo. I run an AI company, and we are driving AI adoption across Africa. And one of the things that you spoke about that deeply resonated is the idea of people being the assets that Africa does not recognize. How would you be advising business leaders to be thinking around the skilling strategy, the upskilling and the reskilling of their people in the new dispensation that is being driven by AI.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so one of the things that we need to have, and I think that on the continent and even in South Africa, we're just really poor with collaboration across businesses, across country, and so on. But I do think that as business, there's a space for a conversation that says, if we ran the country, what would we do? And if we ran the continent, what would we do? Because you kind of almost have to put on a different hat. Because if I keep my CEO hat on, I'm constrained by many things. I'm constrained by the bottom line, and I'm constrained by all sorts of things. And so it also it locks the thinking process somewhat. And so a conversation that says, if we ran the country, what would we do, is a powerful conversation. Because then we would then start saying, but we think the country needs this. And we think that the skills deficit in the country looks like this. And we think that the timing for filling this deficit looks like this. And so if we had to accelerate it, this is what we kind of would put in place. And you kind of have to let that free thinking pull and then come back and say, okay, then how would we do it? Because then there are real constraints around funding, around all sorts of things, right? And how would you kind of roll it out? But I think that there's a massive opportunity for that conversation where we're also just thinking very broadly about AI and tech, not just even for the continent, but how do we then kind of export all of this? But I think it's a conversation where we do need to bring our brains together so that we can do stuff at a big scale and not do it at a small scale. And the problem is that if I just do it at my own scale, so the drone stuff, for example, that I spoke about, we have got about 200 drone pilots now. Most of them are women. But if we said security in the country is a problem, let's train drone pilots for SAPs and change the game a little bit in terms of how security and eyes in the air looks like for the country. The number of 200 maybe is 5,000.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe it's 5,000. And so then we kind of start thinking about it slightly differently. But I can't do 5,000 because I don't have a demand for 5,000 on my own. So mine will always stay at 200. So for me, there is that conversation that needs to be had where we just put our brains together and think a little bit more kind of high level. I know that, is it Telkom? Telkom also has got a training program, I think it's Telkom, where they train robotics. And I just can't remember where their center is. But Telkom have got a center where they just do robotic training. And we haven't kind of gone, what does it look like when that center is times 10 or times 100? And then where do they go? And you've got this pool of South Africans who are now trained in robotics, and what does that mean? I think that we've got a silo effect in general in business that needs to be broken.
I really want to thank my guest here tonight, Mpumi. It's really been incredible. And for you to have come while you're still in recovery, we're really even extra grateful. And I'll give you an opportunity now just to share your closing remarks or reflection on this conversation.
Oh, now I must think about what I'm going to say.
Just to send us off. Inspire us.
So maybe I close with the fact that I have an amazing belief in the South African people. And I have an amazing belief that this is a country and a people that are the best in the world. And that I look forward to us taking our place in the world stage. And we must never forget that. When I talk to a lot of our shareholders, and by the way, most of our shareholders, more than 50% of our shareholders are not South African. US and Europe. And one of the things that people who are outside of the country envy and love about South Africa, and that's why they buy South African stocks, is that they say we are one of the most entrepreneurial economies they've ever come across.
Wow.
If you Sandton here, these high-rise buildings, most of them were started by entrepreneurs. And so they love that about South Africans. And they love the fact that they've never seen, not they've never, but the level of tenacity and grit of South African businesses. They absolutely love that. Even in very difficult times, somehow the South African businesses always outperform.
Yeah.
And so many a times we actually don't know how good we are. And we actually don't know how much we are revered. And so I guess my closing note is that know that you guys are the best. And sometimes we forget that we are actually the best, and so we don't act like it. But know that the outside world believes it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
To you and also to your team that have helped organize this, and then of course to our production team, and most importantly also to all of you who made the time to be here with us. Have a good evening.
Thank you.